Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross from PTCGRadio, and I'm back with round 3 of the Nottingham League Challenge, played at Chimera Games in Nottingham. And we have 2, I believe, undefeated players here at 2-0. On the right, we have a lovely chap called Ben, who you've already seen play Tommy's Evolution deck in the previous round, playing his Aromatisse deck. And on the left, we have Charles Naden Lamb. Now, he was a senior up until this year. He's just aged up into Masters, but he's played at Worlds the past, I believe, 3 years in seniors. I believe the first year he played was the year I went in 2012. So we're talking a very, very good player. Not one of these seniors that's going to age up and be terrible. One of these seniors, like Ryan Morehouse in the UK, who's going to age up and be pretty good. Now, I didn't see who won the flip there. We saw the flip, but I didn't see who won. But Ben's going to choose to go second, even if he does win the flip. So Ben's got his Aromatisse deck. He's got a Geomancy Xerneas active, and it looks like a Spritzy and a Geomancy Xerneas on the bench, but I can't quite see with a glare. Charles appears to be playing a fighting deck. He gets a fighting, not a strong energy onto Landorus, and just plays an N. Now, the reason Ben wants to go second here is he wants to get a Geomancy, putting a Fairy Energy onto 2 bench Pokemon, 1 onto each, before Charles gets attacking fast. Charles is playing a very fast fighting deck, which aims to be doing a lot of damage very, very quickly, and Ben's playing an Aromatisse deck. Now, I would ask you to go back and watch the previous video where he played Tommy for a full explanation of his deck, but essentially, he's got a Stage 1 Pokemon Aromatisse, and he's going to move all his Fairy Energy around, because that's what Aromatisse allows him to do, and then choose his attacker. He's got 4 rainbows, so he can use things like Yveltal. And Charles here is probably playing Garbodor, so he's probably looking for a Trubbish, and there we go, there is the Trubbish, because he's going to want to turn off that Aromatisse. Ben wants to keep that Aromatisse in play so that he can move all his Rainbow, because Rainbow counts as Fairy Energy when it's attached. He can move all his Rainbow and Fairy Energy around, and he's going to be able to just choose whatever attacker he wants and get killing stuff nice and quickly. That's the whole point of Ben's deck. He can move energy around and get a choice of attackers. Charles is going for a much blunter, I'm going to smack you in the face, and I'm going to try and cut off abilities using Garbodor here. And that's what the 2 decks are largely aiming to do. Now, it looks like there's a second Spritzy there, but again, the glare on Ben's side, we've been pretty good with the videos so far, but it's a little bit annoying on Ben's side there. So he gets an Yveltal down. Oh, and that's disappointing. He's got the Geomancy going, but he hasn't been able to play a supporter. He appears to not have much of a hand. The good news is he's got 2 attackers on the field, so we saw this in the games against Tommy. The advantage Ben's having here is that even if he can't move energy around using Aromatisse, he's still got energy on attackers that he can build up. The other good thing for Ben here is that Landorus, although it can get kind of 1790 damage early on, it's not likely to be killing 130 HP Xerneas too quickly, so it looks like Ben should be able to get at least 1 more turn of his Geomancy. Of course, Spritzys only have 50 HP, and Landorus does 30 HP to a bench Pokemon, so using Landorus's Hammerhead, which does 30 to the active and 30 to the bench, Charles is going to be trying to hunt down those Spritzys and try and kill them on the bench. Ideally here, he's going to have a Lysandra, or he's going to have a Pokemon Catcher, catch up 1 Spritzy, and get a Muscle Band or a Strong Energy, and then he'll be able to kill one and put 30 damage on the other. Even Aromatisse, when it gets up and going, has only got 90 HP, so 3 Hammerheads will even kill the Aromatisse. Now, Ben, I can't remember, but he must play a Mr. Mime in this deck, because those Spritzys and those Aromatisses are just so fragile here. He must be playing that. Now, you'll see that Charles played a Corinna there, allowing him to search for 1 fighting Pokemon and 1 item card, and he went for a Lucario. That gives him a little bit of variety, and Lucario I always think is a better attacker than Landorus, and it also allows him He's also got a random receiver. That's a really good card because you can't use Corinna to search for a supporter, only an item. So by using Corinna to search for a random receiver, he's guaranteeing he's going to have a supporter next turn. Charles has not got a great start here because he didn't get a second energy down. And he didn't get a muscle band, and he didn't get a fighting stadium, although that wouldn't do any extra damage to the Xerneas, it not being an EX. Remember that fighting stadium only does 20 more damage to an EX. But he got 30 damage to 2 of those, and he actually went for the 30 damage, it looks like, on the Yveltal. Ben got 2 Aromatisses out straight away, and I can see where Charles is going with this. Ben's not going to bring the Aromatisse active, and Charles is thinking, am I really going to have 3 turns to kill an Aromatisse with Hammerhead? Far better to put the damage on the benched Yveltal, because that is going to come up and attack, and when it does come up and attack, it's going to be easier to kill if it's got 140 HP rather than 170. Ben here's got the Aromatisse into play. He's now got a bunch of energy into play, because he's had the Geomancy and he's had the 2 turns of attaching, so he's got 4 energy down there on turn 2, which is pretty gosh darn nice, to be honest, and he's popping it on Yveltal. Now the card that Ben doesn't have on the board here and wants on the board is Fairy Garden. Fairy Garden gives free retreat to any Pokemon that's got Fairy Energy attached, and that combos very, very nicely with Aromatisse. Aromatisse allows you to move your Fairy Energy around at will, and Fairy Garden allows you to free retreat if you've got a Fairy Energy on there, so you're able to just move a Fairy Energy onto the active and have free retreat for anything. Now Ben gets his Mewtwo out there, and the reason for the Mewtwo, of course, is because Charles has got a Lucario down. Lucario's a very good attacker. He only does 30 damage, not 30 to the active, 30 to the bench like Landorus, but he's got 2 other really good attacks. He's got an attack which does something like 60 for 2 energy and allows you to draw until you've got 6 in your hand, and that's really good. Landorus doesn't have a 2 energy attack. Lucario is, however, weak to Mewtwo, and what that means is that if Ben gets a Mewtwo down, he's got an answer if Charles brings up his Lucario. That kind of forces him to attack with Landorus for the time being, and Ben's clearly building up an Yveltal there to try and take down that Landorus. Now you may be wondering why Ben puts so much energy onto that Yveltal when he's got Aromatisse and can spread the energy around, and the answer is because Charles has got a Trubbish down. If Charles gets a Garbodor and a tool onto that Garbodor, Ben's not going to be able to use the Aromatisse next turn unless he can capture and kill the Garbodor, and by capture I mean any effect which brings one of Charles's bench Pokemon active, could be Lysandra or Red Signal or Bright Look, or if he's got a Startling Megaphone. But he's only going to be playing a certain amount of Startling Megaphone. So what he doesn't want to be doing is, relying on having to draw one of them to do something good. So Charles there brings a Mewtwo active there with Lysandra, and of course what he's going to be wanting to do is take care of that Mewtwo before Ben can take care of the Lucario. Because if Charles is able to kill the Mewtwo, then Lucario does not have a direct counter, or at least Ben doesn't have a direct counter to Lucario, and that makes Lucario viable again. Now there might have been a small tiny audio hiccup, and I might be 0.1 of a second out from where I was previously, but if any of you can discern that 0.1 of a second difference, I would be genuinely quite impressed. So he's brought the Mewtwo active there, and he's going to hunt it down with Landorus, but the problem here is he doesn't have a strong energy on Landorus, and he doesn't have a muscle band on Landorus, and he doesn't have a fighting stadium in play. Ben has now got that stadium in play, by the way. He can then just retreat the Mewtwo. Aromatisse is in play at the moment. Aromatisse has not been shut off by Garbodor, so that means that Ben is actually going to be able to use Aromatisse, move it around, and he's going to want to get the KO with Yveltal. Now he's actually choosing to Y-Cyclone there, moving 1 energy to the bench rather than Evil Ball. Evil Ball there, I believe, would have done 120. 4 energy on the Yveltal is 80. Add 20 is 100. Add 20 for the 1 energy on Landorus. So that's where he's going with that. Not sure why it says 100 on the Landorus. I don't know whether I've missed something there, because it should be doing 90 with Y-Cyclone. Unless that is 90. Regardless, another Lysandra there from Charles. Now, Charles doesn't seem to be having a huge amount. Now, Lysandra, it's good, but it's not really what you want to be doing turn after turn after turn, playing that Lysandra. Now, Charles does appear to have a max potion in hand, which he's not playing, which is interesting. He could have played that max potion to heal up the Landorus, because Ben's got that stadium in play, which means he's got the free retreat. Now, he's got the free retreat there. And Ben now plays a max potion on the Evil Tau. Of course, the good thing about playing Aromatisse here is that you can move the energy off, play max potion, move the energy back again. Now, that Lysandre from Charles might have been a bit of a waste, because to be honest, he could have played the 30. He could have done the 30 damage to the Mewtwo with, the residual bench damage from the Hammerhead, and Ben, with having that stadium in play and Aromatisse out, Ben's got free retreat with anything. So I'm not quite sure what Charles was doing to Lysandre there, but they're both playing very fast in this game, so maybe I did miss something. They are playing at quite the pace. But Ben here is going to be able to do a second Y-Cyclone here, which is going to KO the Landorus and get him 2 prizes. Why Charles didn't play the max potion, I'm not entirely sure. I can only assume that he wanted to save it for later in the game when he wanted to make better use of it. Maybe he wants to end Ben down to a lower hand size later on in the game, and by letting him take 2 prizes here, he's going to be able to end him to a lower hand size, and if he gets Garbodor out, knocks off Aromatisse, and ends Ben down to a low hand size, that might be one way he can win. More likely, Charles just has nothing. He wasn't drawing anything, and truth be told, not playing the max potion, playing the Lysandres, it's a classic example of someone who just doesn't have anything, can see themselves dropping further and further behind in the game, and is just basically going, I'll Lysandre something up, see if it helps. I mean, maybe he was even trying to, and again, I'm not in his mind here, but we saw he plays Bicycle in this deck. He might even have just been playing the Lysandre so that when he, if he draws into a Bicycle, that gives him 1 more card, which might be a supporter which he can play, whereas the Lysandre would at that point have been clogging up his hand. Truth be told, as we saw in that game, Charles drew very little, Ben got a very good start, and as is far too often the case in the format we've got at the moment, there's just nothing there. Charles drew badly, Ben got set up, and he got the win. I would, just while we got a break between games here, like to give a massive shout out to Chimera Games in Nottingham, Chimera. They're easily found on Facebook, and they're just a fantastic shop. Not only did they allow me to film these games, but they allowed me to set up a table at the edge of the store away from the main tournament, and even allowed me to select a game of my choice to record. And of course, a huge thank you to Charles and Ben here for agreeing to be on the stream. As we know, this is the second time, actually in a row, second game in a row that Ben has agreed to be filmed here. So a huge thank you to those chaps for allowing me to record their game. So Charles is going first here, and like I've said, this actually plays into Ben's tactics a little bit. Ben wants a turn 1 Geomancy, and he's actually started again with that Geomancy Xerneas. Now, I've not actually seen Ben's deck list, and I'm afraid, for those of you that are going to put it in the comments, I'm afraid I cannot give you other people's deck lists. It's not polite. If they choose to release those deck lists, I will put a link wherever they choose to release them, but I'm afraid it's not fair for me to release their deck list to you on my YouTube channel. That's not a fair thing to do without their permission, unless they've published it in some kind of public forum, in which case then it's fair game. But I'm imagining that Ben's going to be playing 4 here. Why would he not play 4 if he's really that focused on using it turn 1? And he gets the Landorus active, and this time Charles has got a slightly better start here, because he's got a strong energy on that Landorus. That means Hammerhead is doing 50 to the active. Strong energy does 20 more damage to attacks if it's attached to a fighting Pokemon. So he's doing 50 to the active, 30 to the bench. Now Ben here really needs a second Pokemon, ideally a Spritzy, and he needs a Fairy Energy, because Geomancy only allows you to attach 1 Fairy Energy each to 2 different bench Pokemon. So if he's only got 1 Pokemon down, he only gets 1 extra Fairy Energy into play. So he's forced to Juniper a bunch of stuff there, including a Colress, and it looks like there might have been a Lysandre there as well, which is a little bit of a pain, but what can you do? Now it looks like he's at least got more Pokemon. He needs to get a Spritzy here. That's really what he needs. Oh, there's another Geomancy and a Geomancy Xerneas and a Mewtwo, but there isn't a Spritzy. And the big problem here is that we've seen, and there's a Seismitoad from Charles here. We'll talk about that in just 1 second. And a Muscle Band, so he's doing 70 and 30 to the bench here. The problem is now that Charles is doing, well, now more than 50 with the Muscle Band, which means if Ben pops down a Spritzy, Charles can just Lysandra or Catcher up the Spritzy, and he plays a Laser there, so he's doing 80 to the active, and he puts it asleep. This is much better from Charles here. And it means that unless Ben can put 2 Spritzy down, and there we see the Bicycle coming into play. And I'd like to think that DC is going on to the Seismitoad here. Oh no, it's going on to the Mewtwo. Not what I would have done, but I've not tested with this deck like Charles has. I think we should defer to his. And actually, he's got the Trubbish as well, though, which is going to be good. But if Ben puts down 1 Spritzy, Charles can just Lysandra it up, he can kill it nice and easily, and then Ben's not going to have it in play. And that's really what Charles needs to do. Now the other tactic, and this is a tactic I have practiced with, Seismitoad's got that Quaking Punch, 1 DCE, 30 damage, Ben can't use Trainers the following turn. What that means is that he can get Garbodor out with a tool and just sit there and use Quaking Punch turn after turn, doing hopefully 50 damage with a Muscle Band, maybe more if he gets a Laser into play. And then Ben can't get an Aromatisse. Excuse me, even if Ben gets an Aromatisse out, Charles has got Garbodor in play. Ben cannot play a Startling Megaphone to get rid of the Garbodor, and then the Aromatisse deck can't work like it wants to, and then Charles can just sit there and do 50 or hopefully more damage a turn with Laser, and just chip away. That's how I beat Ben into 1 game I played. Well, I've played Ben 2 games, my Seismitoad against his Aromatisse. The game I won, I just got Garbodor and Seismitoad out and just did Quaking Punch while he was ability locked. But Charles here is going for a more aggressive strategy, and I don't blame him here. Look at the start he's had. He's getting a KO next turn. He's got a Landorus doing a bunch of damage. Why would he not? And there goes the single Spritzy from Ben, but he really wants a second if he can find one. It doesn't look like he's got one, though. I mean, certainly he could bench another Pokemon. It looks like he's got another Xerneas in hand, but if he benches that and he draws a Spritzy next turn, then he can't bench it. Although he is actually, to be fair, he is going to have a Pokemon KO this turn. That Xerneas isn't lasting another turn. But he is going to be able to Geomancy because it woke up from sleep, so there is a big bonus to him there. And what Charles is basically doing here is he's going the aggressive route. Basically saying, I don't need to Quaking Punch with Seismitoad. I've had a fast start. I'm doing lots of damage nice and quickly. So let's just go ahead and keep doing lots of damage. You see there he's got a Lucario EX with a strong energy down. Now Ben is doing the tactic we've seen him do in other games so far. He hasn't got an Aromatisse deck out, so let's Geomancy onto attackers. That way, even if we can't get Aromatisse to move energy round, we're not going to have quite the choice of attackers. We're not going to have the easy access to Max Potion without discarding energy. Because with Aromatisse you can move the energy Max Potion, move it back, and not discard any. But at least then, we've got a Xerneas EX, which can attack because it's got 3 energy on. We've got a Mewtwo EX, which can attack because it's got 2 energy on. The thing he wants to be careful with, of course, is that Charles has got a Mewtwo with a DCE, and having done the 30 damage with Hammerhead to that Mewtwo, it will then be able to get the KO with just 2 energy on Charles, 2 energy on Bender's Mewtwo. If there's 4 combined energy on the Mewtwo, then Mewtwo will do 160, 10 short of getting the KO on 170 HP Mewtwo. So by doing the 30 damage with the Hammerhead there, it was a very clever play from Charles, because it means that Ben's got 2 energy on Mewtwo, Charles has 2 energy on Mewtwo, it's going to get the KO. It doesn't work the other way round though. Charles having 2 energy on a Mewtwo and Ben having 2 energy on a Mewtwo means that Ben's Mewtwo will only do 160 to Charles's, and it won't get a KO. So we see the Garbodor come out, we see the Floatstone. Ben now cannot use Aromatisse, which is a slight problem, shall we say. And there's now 40 damage onto that Xerneas EX, the 10 damage from the Rainbow Energy, and the 30 damage done, the residual energy damage from the Landorus's Hammerhead. So Charles here, he's gone one prize up, but it's not really about the prizes here, it's about the board state. He's got the Garbodor, he's got the tool. Now Ben pops a Caldeo down there, but he's not going to be able to rush in while that Garbodor's out. He's got the Mewtwo with the energy, and crucially, he's got the 30 damage on Ben's Mewtwo, so he's going to be able to get the easier KO. He's got the strong energy on Landorus and the Muscle Band, and he's got the strong energy onto Lucario EX. He's got a bunch of attackers. Now, the advantage that Ben's deck might have here, under normal circumstances, is that Charles isn't going for one-hit KOs. He's going for, if he's lucky, two-hit KOs. And that makes Max Potion very, very strong indeed. The problem, of course, is that Ben is ability locked, which, as previously discussed, means that Aromatisse can't be used, which makes Max Potion far less effective. So, good news for Ben. He was able to play a Colress for 9, which means he's probably gotten a few good things out, which is going to allow him to have some options here. It ain't going to be perfect, but it's going to be worth a punt. By the way, actually, he never actually had an Aromatisse in play. He now finally does have an Aromatisse in play, and there goes a Startling Megaphone, which not only gets rid of the Floatstone on the Garbodor, but also gets rid of the Muscle Band on Landorus. For those that have forgotten, Startling Megaphone gets rid of all the Pokemon tools on your opponent's side of the field. So now he's able to pop an energy on there, and you'll see here a lovely play from Ben. He's actually got 2 Rainbow Energy in play here. He moves both of them to Caldeo, they count as Fairy. He then puts one Fairy as well, and he's now able to use Caldeo's Rush-In attack. Now, Rush-In does 50 damage plus 20 for each water energy. Rainbow Energy also counts as water. That means that Caldeo is doing 90 damage, which times is by 2 with Landorus' water weakness, and actually gets a KO. That is a wonderful, wonderful play from Ben there. But there goes a laser. Luckily, it's a Tails. And there goes the Fighting Stadium, and then he ends Ben. Charles getting 5 cards here, Ben's getting 4. So, although I said earlier that Ben didn't have a counter for Landorus, there he goes with the Caldeo. Now, this isn't an amazing counter. He's probably only playing 1 Caldeo, I would imagine, and he's only playing 4 Rainbow Energy, and Prism has been rotated out. But what it does allow Ben to do is it gives him an option. If he can get 2 Rainbow Energy into play, and he can get the Caldeo down, then he can pull off plays like that. Caldeo is not an amazing attacker when you've only got 4 Rainbow Energy, which is a maximum of 4 water if you get them all on the field, which is ordinarily going to max out at 130 damage, or 150 with Muscle Band. But what it does allow you to do is it's really strong against water-weak Pokemon, as we saw there. And if we look at Charles's attackers, he's got Seismitoad, he's got Mewtwo, and he's got a bunch of fighting Pokemon. None of those are necessarily that strong against Caldeo. He can get some 2-hit KOs going, no doubt, but he's not getting 1-hit KOs. Mewtwo there's doing 100, that goes up to 110 with the with the poison damage. And he's going to get the KO next turn, but he's not got the KO yet. Now, there is a Muscle Band down on that Garbodor, which means that abilities are back in play. And what... Oh, no, there we go. Yeah, Ben drops down Virizion to get rid of the poison, but as Charles pointed out, Garbodor's down. Virizion's ability that shuts off all special conditions does not work. So Ben's playing an Enter 4 here, and he really needs to hit a Startling Megaphone or maybe a Dowsing Machine. In one of the games, he got rid of the Dowsing Machine early. I think that was last game. When you're watching a best of 3 like this and you're trying to kind of keep up with it and commentate, it can be quite difficult to remember what happened in which game. And it is, I mean, for those of you who never tried it, it is quite difficult to commentate when you're watching a game kind of at full speed and you're not involved. And they ain't waiting for me. But it is something which I'd recommend you all have a go at, because it really is quite fun. I enjoy doing these, especially when it's other people playing in a good tournament and you've got good players, good decks. So, Ben here, he can do 90 damage with the Caldeo. What he really wants to do is get the KO with the Mewtwo, and actually what Ben would want, possibly more than the Startling Megaphone here, he wants a Fairy Garden, and I can't imagine he's drawn it or he would have put it down. Now, one option Ben does have here, it looks like he's got 2 energy on the Mewtwo. He could retreat the Keldeo. Keldeo's got a retreat cost of 2. He could then KO with the Mewtwo. He would need a third energy or a muscle band. But the problem is there, and he's actually got a third energy in hand. But that Mewtwo may well end up dying next turn. Which means he's getting rid of 5 energy total with this play. He hasn't got a lot of energy down, and it's just really awkward to do. So instead, he's choosing to attack with his Xerneas EX. Now, Xerneas EX has got, I think, 170 HP. I think it's got maybe 50 damage on it at the moment from the 2 Rainbow Energies and... No, maybe it's 40 from 1 Rainbow Energy and 1 Hammerhead. It's got a bit of damage on it anyway. But it's not one of those Pokemon that's going to actually be pretty awkward to get the KO on. Although, if he's got a muscle band on the Lucario, and it looks like it has, that Lucario is going to be doing 100 damage with its second attack with the 2 fighting energy. That then goes up to 120 with Fighting Stadium. If he can get maybe a switch here with the computer search, or from a supporter which he gets with the computer search, and he puts that muscle band onto Lucario, that Lucario will actually be doing, I believe, 140 damage with its second attack. So 60 base plus 20 for each of the fighting energy is 100, plus 20 for the muscle band is 120, plus 20 for the fighting stadium is 140 as it's an EX. And what that does... Oh, this is not the play I would have gone for. Now, I can't see how much damage is on that Xerneas EX, but as long as it's 30 or more, he's going to be able to get the KO with Lucario. Having said that, both Lucario and Mewtwo are fighting weak. Ben is going to be able to get the revenge KO with his Mewtwo here, going down to 2 prizes. He wouldn't be able to get the KO on the Lucario without getting a third energy or a muscle band. Having said that, Lucario's got 2 strong energy on it. That's already quite the investment. So, although I initially suggested getting the KO with Lucario, which I believe would have worked, here he's losing the Mewtwo, but he can then get the KO with his Lucario, and then Ben doesn't have a Mewtwo to get a second revenge KO. And Ben's running very short of energy here, and it looks like there is actually only 1 energy on that Mewtwo. So Ben puts an energy down, he can get a KO. And Ben's going to try and rush in, but he can't rush in because abilities are blocked with Garbodor. So Ben, if he's got an energy, Ben can get the KO here, but then there's going to be 1 energy left on his Keldeo, and like I've said, that Lucario's hitting for 120 at the moment. So, this game looks... There we go, and yeah, it's over. And one thing that's really good about what Ben did there, Charles still had to get a KO and then another prize. Charles had 3 prizes left. There was going to be a good couple of turns before Charles got the win. But Ben basically looked at that and decided what I did. At the end of the day, Charles is going to win this game. Ben knew that Charles was going to get the KO with his Lucario. He'd done the maths the same way I had. What that means is that Ben's effectively going to be left with a Keldeo with 1 Rainbow Energy on. That's the only attacker he's going to have. He would have to get a Mewtwo and a Startling Megaphone and an Energy and a Muscle Band, and even that... Oh no, and that would then have got the KO on the Lucario. But that really is a huge amount to ask for, and Ben had probably done the maths and realised he wasn't getting that. Bearing in mind, of course, he also would have had to get a Fairy Garden, so he would have needed a Fairy Garden and a Muscle Band and an Energy and a Mewtwo and a Startling Megaphone if I didn't say that one. And Ben probably realised that at least one of those cards was either prized or he was out of them, and essentially realised, I'm not going to win this game. You've seen that Ben's deck isn't the fastest, so he's essentially said, I'm about half an hour in, we've got 20 minutes left, let's not waste time. Ben, you saw in game 1, if Ben gets up and running, Ben's pretty good in this matchup. He doesn't want the draw here, Ben's going for the win, which is admirable in this format, and essentially he's realised, let's just go for this. Let's go to game 3, I ain't winning game 2. He could have stalled and increased his chances of getting a draw overall, but, I think I've made my thoughts on draws quite clear in my podcast, PTCGRadio. Draws suck, I hate them, screw draws. So, just no good here. Now, you saw in a previous game, and I talked about Aromatisse on this week's podcast, week 114, called something like Aromatisse at Arena Cup, where we talk about Aromatisse in detail and we go through the results of the German Arena Cup, the first big tournament in the expanded format. And you saw that Ben's Aromatisse deck in the previous game against Tommy's Evolutions was a huge favourite. Evolutions was a counter deck, and it didn't really have anything that countered Ben's deck particularly well, and Ben got a fairly nice victory there. You should have watched the video, I warned you. Spoiler alert, too late now. In this game, I would probably put Charles as the favourite. Now, we've seen that Ben can win here, and if Ben gets set up, he probably will win. But the fact that Charles has got that Garbodor that Ben has to contend with, that he's got Seismitoad to block trainers... I mean, if Ben has a slow start, Charles can literally just go Seismitoad, DCE, Garbodor with a Float Stone, and then Ben could really struggle to set up with no abilities and no trainers, and Charles will just go to a nice easy win under that situation. So, yeah, the other thing, of course, is that Charles can hit fast and get quick wins, but if it goes to a longer game and everybody's doing quite nicely, then, Ben's going to be the favourite in this game. Essentially, the challenge for Charles is to make sure that he is set up... Oh, and there's an N there straight away. Can he set up fast enough and get some quick prizes? Because if Ben can just set up and use Evil Towels and Xerneas EXs, etc. while healing, while Charles isn't getting a one-hit KO, Ben's going to win this game. Now, you will observe that Ben, having lost Game 2, chose to go second, and this is exactly what I've said. The challenge for Ben here is that he needs to get a Xerneas, and he needs to get it into the active spot. And that's going to be the challenge. He started with an Evil Towel. If Ben doesn't get a Xerneas in the active spot, then he's not going to get the turn 1 Geomancy. And he's not going to have done well by going second. Now, if I remember correctly, I've not seen any switch or escape rope from Ben in this game, which means he's not going to be able to Geomancy, because he would have to attach an energy to Evil Towel and retreat with Fairy Garden for free, but then he cannot get the energy back onto Evil Towel to Geomancy. I mean, certainly if I were Ben and I started with Xerneas in the active, then I would want to go second to get the Geomancy turn 1 with the Xerneas. But if I'm going if I haven't got a Xerneas in the active, I would choose to go first in this game, so that I've essentially got 2 turns to get Xerneas into the active. And that's what I would want to do here. And then hopefully you can get the Aromatisse going on your second turn, just in case Charles is going to try and fight it down with the residual damage from Hammerhead. Remember, 2 Hammerheads onto a Spritzy on the bench will get the KO here. So, does Ben play Switch? Can he get a Xerneas down? Can he get an energy on it? If Ben doesn't get the turn 1 Geomancy here, then essentially he's in the position he didn't want to be in, i.e. Charles gets an attack before Ben gets a Geomancy, but with the added bonus of Charles has had a turn to get a Trubbish down and to attach an energy and all of that good stuff. So, he's got the Xerneas down. He may well play a switch here. I don't remember seeing any from Ben. But that doesn't mean he doesn't play them, and it doesn't mean he hasn't played them. It is easy to get confused with these kind of games when they're playing quite fast. So, he's got the Evil Towel active, he's got the Xerneas, and he plays a Mewtwo there. Oh, and that's at least the second game in this best of 3 where Ben's had to just ditch his Dowsing Machine without ever getting to play it. And you have to play Dowsing Machine in Aromatisse. Getting that extra Evo Soda to get your Aromatisse out, that extra Startling Megaphone to cut off Garbodor, that extra Max Potion to get the healing done in your deck. It's just too good not to play. Now, you saw Ben had the Fairy Garden there, and you saw that he didn't play it. Because what's the point? Firstly, Evil Towel is resistant to fighting, which means Landorus at the moment is doing 10 with Hammerhead. But also, if Ben puts down Fairy Garden, then Charles can counter it with Fighting Stadium, and then Ben has essentially wasted one. when you've got two decks like this, I mean, Charles really relies on that Fighting Stadium to do an extra 20 damage, and Ben really relies on that Fairy Garden to make sure he's got free retreat of all of his Pokemon. So in a situation like this, you don't want to put down a stadium until you need it, because then you're what we call losing the Stadium War. Essentially, if you're each playing, say, 2 copies of your stadium, Ben goes Fairy Garden, Charles counters it with Fighting Stadium. Ben goes Fairy Garden, Charles counters it with Fighting Stadium, Ben has no Fairy Garden left. Now, to be fair, Ben does play Dowsing Machine, which counts as a third, and I'm assuming, I don't know how many he's playing, he's probably, to be honest, playing 3, but we're assuming they're playing 2 each for the purposes of this illustration. And Ben could use that Dowsing Machine as a third Fairy Garden to win the Stadium War, but as we've said, that Dowsing Machine, it could be a Max Potion, or it could be a, not Dowsing Machine, that's ridiculous. It could be a Startling Megaphone. And they're far more important than Fairy Garden in some matchups, and essentially, like I say, play the Stadium War properly, it's easier to save those stadiums. Now, my apologies to those of you that know all about Stadium Wars, but I thought that was something that was worth explaining, just in case you saw the Fairy Garden and were wondering why Ben hadn't played it. Goes down to something I've talked about in a lot of my videos, which is basically playing cards only when you need to, unless, of course, you're trying to thin your deck in case your opponent plays an N, in which case you'll play whatever you can. Now, there is 30 damage done by the Hammerhead to the Yveltal, but that's, of course, because Charles put a Muscle Band onto that Landorus. It would have been 50 without the resistance. And again, Charles has chosen to do what we saw him do in Game 1, and not bother putting the 30 damage on the Spritzy. Oh, and there goes the Fairy Garden. And that must mean that Ben has an Aromatisse or an Evo Soda here. Oh no! No, he's actually just got the energy. And there goes the, and there we go, yeah. So there's the Geomancy there, getting the extra energy on. Of course, Charles played an N last turn, which is why Ben didn't already have the Fairy Garden in hand. And we've seen Charles is not bothering to hunt down the Spritzys because there's 2 of them, and because, I mean, those of you that have played Landorus EX focused decks, as I have many times in the past, will realise this, that trying to get 3 Hammerheads onto the same Pokemon is really quite difficult. And the thing I haven't mentioned, of course, in this context, is that Ben plays Max Potion, and Aromatisse is never going to actually have a bunch of energy on it, unless it's the only Pokemon on the bench when you're using Geomancy, or one of only 2 Pokemon. So essentially, if Charles gets, 60 damage on an Aromatisse and is 1 Hammerhead away from a KO, Ben's just going to drop a Max Potion and he's going to be wasting that Hammerhead. Charles is instead choosing to go for the KOs and soften up the Pokemon that he's going to want to KO. He puts a 30 damage onto that Xerneas on the bench because he knows that's what Ben's going to bring active, and he's trying to get the KO there. The key here, of course, is that Landorus' second attack does 80 damage if you don't discard the fighting energy, and 150 if you do. With the Muscle Band, that does 100 damage if you don't discard the fighting energy. And when Xerneas has 30 damage on it, it's got 100 HP left. I.e., if Charles chooses to put another energy onto Landorus, he can actually get the KO here without discarding the fighting energy. And that's going to get him a prize. Not only that, but if Ben is unable to kill that Landorus will then be doing 170 if he does discard the fighting energy next turn, which will get a one-hit KO onto a Xerneas EX or a Mewtwo EX, or now that it's got 30 damage on it, an Yveltal EX. Which means Charles could be 3 prizes up very quickly. Now the downside of that strategy, of course, is that Charles would have to put his first 3 energy attachments onto Landorus, and then discard them all on his 3rd turn of the game, leaving him 3 prizes down with no energy on the field. And that is not necessarily a situation you want to get into. Ben could then end Charles to 3, and if he ends Charles to 3, he might not have any energy, and Ben can start to make a comeback. Now I'm not saying that's something that's going to happen, it depends how aggressive Charles wants to be here. And I know I'm kind of going a few turns ahead, but when you're playing these games, especially when you're playing a good player with a good deck, as both the chaps here are, you want to be thinking about what you're going to do next turn and the turn after. Charles can get the KO here if he puts a Fern Energy down on the... Oh, and there's a Strong Energy there, which is quite interesting. So he actually does 120 damage there, which is more than he needed to do, but it's certainly not a bad thing. And this Xerneas EX is going to be able to be taken down if Charles chooses to discard the energy here, which of course is not necessarily something he's going to want to do. Like I said, he would then be down to 3 prizes, he would have no other energy on the field, and he would be susceptible to some end-style shenanigans. But it's something he wants to bear in mind. Xerneas EX has a resistance to Dark, not to Fighting, so that's really not an issue. There is no kind of resistance here. And if he discards a Fighting Energy, he's actually doing 190 here, which would even be enough to kill the Yveltal EX if there was no damage on through the resistance, which is kind of cool. Now, the advantage, of course, is that next turn, and I did say he'd get rid of all his energy, he wouldn't, of course, because it will be Charles's 4th turn of the game, and he will be able to attach 1 energy this turn to something other than the Landorus, which is quite good. Now, for those of you wondering, Land's Judgment says you may discard all Fighting Energy, and it's got the symbol of the little fist, and Strong Energy does provide the, Fighting Energy with the little fist symbol. I.e., if you use Land's Judgment, it will force you to discard the Strong Energy as well as the basic Fighting. If you are wondering, the way the rules basically work is, you do the attack, then discard the energy, so the Strong Energy would allow Landorus to do an extra 20 damage, and then it would get discarded. So Land's Judgment, if you didn't discard, would just be doing the base 120. If you did discard, it would be doing 150, plus 20 for the Muscle Band, plus 20 for the Strong Energy, and then the Strong Energy would be discarded after you've done the damage. A few people have asked me that in the past few weeks, so there's just a reminder about that. Now, the good news here is that Ben is able to get an Yveltal out. Is he using Evil Ball? Now he's got free energy, and free energy, that is 120. It's doing 140. 80, 100, 120, 140. And that is doing 140, it looks like, which is quite a large amount of damage there. Now that Landorus, unfortunately, is not quite dead. Evil Ball, remember, does 20 damage, plus 20 more for each energy attached to each active Pokemon. So 3 on the Landorus, 3 on the Yveltal is 120 damage, plus the 20 base damage puts 140 damage. So not dead yet, but not far away. Now he is choosing to retreat. No, he's not choosing to retreat. My apologies. He is doing the big Land's Judgment there. So it's a real shame Ben wasn't able to get the KO with Evil Ball. If he had been able to get the KO with Evil Ball, that would have been absolutely huge, because it would have stopped that Land's Judgment play. As it is, he got the Land's Judgment, and as I suspected, he did get another energy down, and it's a DCE on the Mewtwo. That gives him an attacker next turn. And as previously mentioned, Charles is down to 3 prizes. So he's now going to be down to 3 cards in hand when Ben plays that N. So Ben here is going for the comeback. Charles is up by 3 prizes, and Ben doesn't have that much. He's got 2 energy on the field here. He needs to get an energy, and even then, Charles is going to be, knocking at the door of killing that thing quite early on. And of course, Garbodor's out, so Aromatisse and all that kind of stuff is out of the question. Now, what Ben really could have done with there is something like a Lysandre, and an energy, because Xerneas' first attack for free energy, I think, does 60 to the active, 30 to the bench, which means, if there was only 140 on the Landorus, I can't see how much is on there, that wouldn't have got the KO. But if there's 30 or less on the Landorus, then he would have actually been able to get the bench KO, and that Garbodor has a muscle band on. So if he were to drag that active with Lysandra, there's a good chance that Charles wouldn't have been able to retreat it, and Ben could have got the 2-hit KO on the Garbodor whilst spreading 30 to the bench. And even if Landorus had 40 damage left, like we suspect it might, he could have just done 60 to the Garbodor, 30 to the Landorus, and then next turn got on the double KO. But that's all, of course, a moot point. Ben didn't have the Lysandra, and Ben didn't have the the extra energy, so it was entirely irrelevant. But with the perfect hand, that would have been a good play there. The great thing about using that when Charles had a muscle band on the Garbodor is that it was a long game. Charles wouldn't be able to get a Floatstone on the Garbodor, and he would have had to find a switch. And with his playing Floatstone as well, he's probably not playing too many switch cards. So that would have been a lovely play that Ben could have played, but he didn't have a Lysandra, so it's entirely a moot point at this stage. So Ben, he's just seeing what he's got here. He's been able to play a startling Megaphone, which is good, but he's not got a huge amount. Now the hope for Ben is that Charles isn't going to be able to find another tool. If Charles finds a tool and attaches it and turns abilities off again, that's going to be a problem. Well, this is a really risky play for Ben here. Because if Charles has got an energy or a muscle band, he gets a KO, goes down to 1 prize left, and Ben doesn't have a Mewtwo down to get the counter, and he entirely runs Ben out of energy. This must be a desperation play from Ben here, because he knows he's running short of time. There's a laser, he's got the KO on Mewtwo, because Charles's Mewtwo's doing 160, the laser will put it up to 170, and that's basically game at this stage. One of the ways to beat Aromatisse is to run it out of energy, and that's what Charles is doing here. Now, with 2 energy on the field, Ben didn't have another attacker. Xerneas EX needs 3 energy to attack. Yveltal needs a dark, or in Ben's case, a rainbow energy to attack. The only attack he can do is with a Mewtwo, and he had end Charles down to 3. But Charles there, with an energy, or a laser, or a muscle band, would have got the KO there. He had the laser. He's going down to 1 prize. Ben is not going to have any energy on the field, and the game's basically over now. Now, with an energy and a Lysandra, or actually even a Lysandra here, he's going to get the KO. There's a Spritzy on the bench. That Lucario will be doing 50 damage. That Mewtwo can retreat with the DCE on it. So if Charles has got a Lysandra here, he can actually bring that Spritzy active and end the game this turn. Now Charles is being end to 1, but the thing is, if you've got an attacker and your opponent doesn't, being end to 1 isn't that bad a thing. Charles can just sit there and X-Ball for 40 plus damage every turn, and you know, Ben... Now, the good news is there's a rainbow energy there. That's a good news. But Ben needs 1 more energy before he can even attack. And even then, he's going to be 2-hitting the Mewtwo. And even then, Charles is still going to have a chance to KO that Yveltal. I mean, essentially, he's going to need... Oh, and there's the Floatstone for the Garbodor. That's absolutely huge. The win condition for Ben here, basically, was hope Charles doesn't draw into energy and tools. And basically, just sit there and Evil Ball the Mewtwo until it dies. Hopefully drawing into a Max Potion so he can basically heal the Yveltal with Max Potion while KOing the Mewtwo and then the Lucario with Evil Ball. Now that was a very tall ask, but now Charles has got a Floatstone down. And what that means is that he's doing 80 damage with Mewtwo. 80 because 4 energy, 4 times 20. And Ben can't even move the energy to Xerneas. And even if he does move the energy to Xerneas, he doesn't have a Fairy Garden in play to do the retreating. So, I mean, Ben here, he's going to need a Fairy Garden and an energy and a muscle band and a startling Megaphone. Oh, and there's Lysandre anyway. And that, I think, would have got him the KO on that Mewtwo. So there we see, and we saw the game play out exactly as it should. In the first game, Ben got set up, and Charles's deck just couldn't cope against a setup. Now, we know Charles drew badly in game 1, but when Ben's deck sets up, it's going to win. In the other 2 games, we saw Charles get a very fast start. He never even needed to use a Seismitoad to slow the game down. He gets a nice fast start. And there really is nothing that Ben can do in that situation. We saw Ben play very well, but Charles is hitting so hard and so fast, he's able to get the KOs and run Ben out of energy, and there's really very little Ben can actually do at that point. Now, this is a part of the video where I say if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. If you have subscribed, go find a friend. You play Pokemon. I'm assuming you know other people that play Pokemon. Find someone that hasn't subscribed, get them to subscribe. We're doing very well on this channel. We're growing by 2 or 3 subscribers a day, which I think is pretty good. But there are channels out there with a couple thousand subscribers. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you comment. Please check out my YouTube channel, the rest of it, and my podcast, PTCGRadio. There's one more game coming from this tournament in a couple days' time. It will be the final of this tournament, and it will be me with my Seismitoad deck against Tommy Roberts' Evolutions deck from the previous video. Thank you for watching. Look after yourselves.